Good morning, everyone. I believe that we are witnessing the decline of Christianity. There is a clear trend on YouTube and outside of YouTube where we see Christians, large and small. When I say large and small, I'm referring to those who are like within mega churches and those who are not within mega churches, but they are nonetheless churches. And the teachers and preachers and pastors within them, they are going at each other's necks like crazy. It is really something to behold. It is almost as if God has thrown Christianity onto a sickbed, a mental sickbed, and it has forgotten who it is they are to worship, who they are to follow, and whose example of conduct they are to emulate, and that's Christ Himself. But to begin with, let's go to Matthew chapter 12, verse 20 through 25. At verse 20, we begin. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out, till he has brought justice through to victory. In his name the nations will put their hope. In verse 22, then they brought him a demon-possessed man who was blind and mute, and Jesus healed him so that he could both talk and see. And that's something we don't see Christianity doing today. They're not raising the dead and restoring sight to the blind and hearing to the deaf and dumb. All these people were astonished and said, "Could this be the son of David?" Verse 24. But when the Pharisees heard this, they said, "It is only by Beelzebul, the prince of demons, that this fellow drives out demons." These Jewish religious leaders who viewed Jesus as a threat, simply because he taught the truth. So they hurled false accusations at him. And we see that within the camp of Christianity today. Christians hurling accusations and slanderous things towards their own brothers. Christians fighting against Christians. Verse 25. Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, "Every kingdom divided against will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand." Christianity is a house divided against itself. Now, let's look at another scripture that's found at Luke chapter 11, verse 17. And it's like the one we just read. Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, "Any kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and a house divided against itself will fall." Now, Christianity is a house divided against itself. Do we see any agreement among Christians when it comes to teachings? You see, all in a house would have one teaching and one Lord and Master over that household. Christianity has many teachings and divisions within that house, not one. Christianity and its offspring, Christians, have become what the Apostle Paul wrote at 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 9. Let's go there and check that out. Here the Apostle Paul writes, "Mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying its power. Have nothing to do with such people." Verse 6. "They are the kind who worm their way into homes and gain control over gullible women, who are loaded down with sins and are swayed by all kinds of evil desires, always learning but never able to come to a accurate knowledge of the truth." Let me repeat that. Always learning but never able to come to an accurate knowledge of the truth. Just as Jannes and Jambres opposed Moses, so also these teachers oppose the truth. They are men of depraved minds who, as far as the faith is concerned, are rejected. But they will not get very far because, as in the case of those men, their folly will be clear to everyone. It will only be a matter of time where God will expose the false. Christianity is so unloving, so unkind, lovers of money. You've seen the mega churches. Even many of these YouTube content creators, not all of them, because I believe that there are many out there who are sincere. But it appears to me that their goal is to create drama and tabloid to bring in views and subscribers for the sake of getting that YouTube paycheck. Boastful, my goodness, they are so boastful. Proud, abusive. I've been cussed out many times by Christians as of late. Disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love. If these Christians are going at one another, it's almost as if they hate one another. If they hate one another, then how do they really feel about those who are not Christians? I've listened to these so-called pastors and preachers justify their conduct as being okay. See, those are not godly thoughts. Those are human thoughts. That's base human thinking. Nothing spiritual there. And you see them, they're so unholy and without love and unforgiving, always doing this. Slanderous. That's a big one. Slanderous. Without self-control. That's another big one. They cannot control their tongue. Rather than be silent, they go forth in calling their so-called brothers and sisters, because the ones that they're pointing fingers at and calling out, are they not Christians too? Are they not your brothers and sisters in the Lord? So what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And when I see that, there's just cements in my mind that Christianity really isn't from above. It's not of Christ. It's of this world, a world that Jesus said that his kingdom is no part of. Christianity has its origins in this world. Satan is the god of this world. Christians act anything but like Christ. Continuing here, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, yes, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. There are persons within those mega churches who have no problem buying multi-million-dollar houses and airplanes. For what? Pleasures. They love money. Money is their God. So they're lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. And they all have a form of godliness. They appear to be godly because they can quote scripture. Okay, anyone can quote scripture. But they have this form of godliness, but they deny its power. In other words, they're playing false to it. They have not come to an understanding of the truth. And if one goes down to verse 7 here, always learning, but never able to come to a knowledge of the truth. That fits Christianity and its offspring, Christians, to the T. They're always learning, but it's like they're not getting it. They're not coming to an accurate knowledge of the truth. So what I see occurring before our very eyes is the slow decline of Christianity. And as Jesus says here, any kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and a house divided against itself will fall. It will fall. So there's nothing that I have to do, and I wouldn't want to do it anyway because God's going to take care of it. I've been telling folks this all along. One doesn't have to call out false prophets and false teachers and all that. God knows who those persons are. Leave them alone, because you might find yourselves fighting against God. God allows them to do what they're doing by his permission. If God did not want them to do those things, I guarantee you they wouldn't be doing them. So leave them alone. You might be, I'm referring to those of you who are calling out others as being false teachers and false prophets and liars. That could be you. So you're doing this, but look back at yourself. Look at those 3 fingers pointing back at you. Leave those persons alone, and they should leave you alone. God will expose you if you're false, and if what you're teaching is the truth, there's nothing that anyone can do about that. You can't hide the truth under a hat, and you can't hold it down. That is impossible. This is R. Jerome Harris, the disciple. Thank you for listening.